Hello, Oracles! Well, the energy S-curve is about to begin. We got some information from Viecha yesterday discussing with Goldman Sachs some information about batteries and how for the first time he can remember they have all the battery cells they need to run both sides of their business between EVs and energy. We're going to get into that in a minute, just going to touch base on the stock price really quick. So today what we're looking at is we're up pre-market at the time of this recording. By the time you guys watch this, we are most likely going to have our CPI data out. So the things I'm paying attention to are the numbers, so the expectations are 8.1%. So if we come in below that, we might see a little bit of a rally coming out of this. Now, paying attention to the levels specifically for Tesla are that 312 and 315 mark. So if we do continue to push higher, I'm paying attention to that. Volume is going to play a very key role in all of this. We've had our breakout going on. We really just broke our downward trend. The breakout is happening, but it's kind of a weak breakout because we don't have a lot of volume coming in. Previously, prior to the split, we would trade around 26 million shares on a daily basis. So that would translate to about 75 million shares post-split. We are currently right around 55 million shares. So we are still trading at lower volumes right now. In order to break those levels, we normally need higher volume. So we would need something around that 75 million to 90 million shares trading hands to be able to push us north of this level. So we're going to be paying attention to that. So if we get that great CPI data and we end up pushing north, that's the area I'm looking at. So I'm going to look at 312 to 315 and the volume. That's what I'm paying attention to today. And so I know a lot of the stuff that I've been talking about lately is, hey, we're running to the moon, but I think we're going to pull back. Not to spread any FUD, not trying to be negative of any sort, but I know some of you, I was speaking to Jack, and Jack is like, hey, I'm just going to go hide away because I'm waiting to see the good stuff. Totally cool. A lot of long-term investors are like, we're going through some rough times. I'm just going to set it and forget it and walk away for a little while. Totally good. I just happen to be paying attention for learning purposes only and just to try and educate, because I'm trying to say, hey, if we go higher and we're going to break these levels, this is what we need to do. If we don't, there's a chance we can fall down. And right now, if we fall further down and we break below 300, we're looking at that 278 range to see if we're going to break below that. Just the things to pay attention to, that is all. Again, I have buys down at 250, so ideally I think over the next couple of weeks we could pull down to lower levels, satisfy some of those gaps down there, and then run back up as we get production numbers for Q3. Just my thoughts. But looking long term, very, very bullish. So again, we got the word from Viecha coming out yesterday about how Tesla has all of the batteries that they need to supply both ends of their business. Currently, they are using about 90% of their battery cells in the EV business and 10% in the energy business. Now, over the last couple of years, due to all the supply chain constraints, they were having to pull back on the energy side of their business. So they focused mainly on EVs. That's where they're making most of their money right now anyway, so that's where they had to focus. Now they can start spreading out and focusing on both ends of the spectrum. So if they can now focus on both sides, they can really start driving the energy business forward even more. And he said that the 4680 ramp is just getting started, and the 4680s are going to be significant cost savers in the future as well. So as that gets ramped up, they're going to have a lot more batteries to use for both sides of the business and save a lot of money because the 4680s are significantly more efficient as well. And with the partnerships that they have with Panasonic, LG Chem, and CATL, they have a lot of the batteries coming in from other suppliers, and Tesla is going to be ramping up their 4680s themselves on top of it. So they have a lot of battery supply coming in. They have set the foundation going forward. This is something Tesla does that is extremely well with their entire mindset for everything. It's not about problem solving, it's about problem prevention. And so Tesla goes out there and they say, hey, we see this problem that could be arising. We are going to prevent that problem from happening in the first place. And then if they get to that point and the problem still exists, it's a lot easier problem to deal with than what they had before, where you run into legacy automotive makers, they come into a situation with chip shortages and they're just handcuffed and they're like, well, we can't make vehicles now. Okay, well, Tesla's like, that's not an option. Like, we've figured out solutions on how to get around these things, and so we're going to make a solution and get through it. And then we're going to say, hey, what other problems do we see in the future? Hey, we see problems with lithium and other batteries. Cool, let's line ourselves up with as many batteries as we possibly can, and we'll start producing our own to have ourselves set up for success down the road in the future. So with all of that said, now they are at a place where they can be focusing on EVs and energy when all of their competition is still struggling to focus on just their EV business. And their EV business on the legacy side of things isn't even profitable. And this is why we discuss how, Tesla is so far ahead of everyone else, whereas Tesla can start focusing on the energy side of their business, which a lot of bears are saying, hey, Tesla only has EVs, they're only an EV company. Well, guess what? Now they're starting to work on energy more diligently because they have the supplies to be able to do so. So now what are you going to come back with and say, oh, well, Tesla is now dividing their attention. They're not only focused on EVs and they're distracted now. Like, there's always going to be somebody spreading some sort of FUD about Tesla, and it's a lot of times because their mind cannot accept the fact that the impossible can become possible if you continue to work on it. And Abbe Sull in the comments yesterday referenced Robert F. Kennedy's quote saying, "Some men see things that are and ask why. I dream of things that never were and ask why not." This is exactly Tesla's mindset. They say, hey, just because, these things didn't exist before doesn't mean they can't exist now. Why not? Why can't they exist? Why can't we figure these problems out now? And it's a thankless endeavor to go into when you're thinking about, problem prevention. This is what they're going into when it comes to FSD. Elon said himself, a lot of people aren't going to realize that FSD saved their lives. It's just not how human nature works. You can say, hey, I got into an accident and my vehicle saved my life. You'll recognize that, but there's a very good chance most people aren't going to notice when their vehicle just avoided an accident altogether to prevent that from even happening in the first place. I had mentioned a comment before. My friend Tony was with his family and they're driving along. He was going to be changing lanes. He didn't see a car. The Tesla saw the car and it moved them out of the way to avoid them from getting hit. So it prevented that accident. He noticed that. But there's going to be a lot of people out there and other things that the vehicles are going to be doing that people aren't going to recognize. You're just not going to see it. The only way you're going to see this is over years and years of data coming in that are going to be telling you, oh, by the way, vehicular accident deaths have dropped significantly. And why? Well, it's because FSD has been on the road. It's going to take years for us to get that data to really show the effects and influence that FSD and robotaxis are having on our roads. So in the meantime, we're going to have to fight this. We're going to have a lot of FUD that's going to come along the way, and we're going to have to battle that, and I'm going to buy those FUD dips every single time. But these are the things that Tesla is going into when it comes to preventing problems in the first place. And again, it's not just when it comes to saving lives with FSD, it's also in production and manufacturing. They're looking ahead saying, all right, we are seeing problems that are out there. Let's solve this problem from the root. Let's figure out where this problem is going to come from and figure out a solution for it before we even get to that problem. And this mindset is why Tesla is so much more successful than everyone else. Because when we get to a point where everyone else is handcuffed and can't even survive at all to go through these times like we had in the pandemic with supply chain issues, Tesla was able to thrive. Tesla was on the stronger side of things. So now let's go into the, in the future for a couple of years and say, hey, if these legacy automotive makers are still struggling to catch up and Tesla was thriving when times were challenging, how is it going to go when Tesla doesn't have anything in their way? When there's no headwinds holding them back? They can then just run and they can take off and just run away from everyone else even further. And so then getting all this word coming from Martin about all the batteries and how they don't have the battery supply constraints anymore like they did in the past, this is just so much more of that breath of fresh air saying, all right, well now less and less headwinds are in their way. Less and less headwinds for production. Now energy, they can start taking off on the energy side of their business. EVs were the focus, they were pushing forward. EVs are still going to be the focus. It's 90% of their batteries, but now energy is going to take up 10%. And that will grow and the business will continue to grow. They'll get more batteries built. 4680s are going to start ramping. They're still looking at about a weekly run rate of 5,000 battery packs per week built for the 4680s by the end of the year. So going into next year, that'll be a significant ramp, getting the Cybertruck up and running, getting 4680s put into the Model Ys. Very exciting times going in the future. And so when I get information like this from Martin discussing how they've got enough battery cells that they need to supply the entire side of their business, that is awesome news to begin with. But for me, what I look at is the underlying meaning behind it all, which is Tesla is setting themselves up for massive success in the future. That is what I look at, and that tells me that when we get down the road 3-5 years from now and nobody knows what's actually going to happen at that point, I know that Tesla has set themselves up for the best chance of success out of anyone else. So when I start talking about the stock price coming down to 250, it is strictly an educational purpose, just so we can see, hey, this is what happens in the stock movements on a day-to-day basis. So emotionally, you can say, hey, In the future, I see Tesla's doing extremely well. In the near term, we're having these price fluctuations, but emotionally, I know why. I know why they're moving in these directions. I know why it's going up and down in the near term, but in the long term, it's going to be fine. Many of you ask questions, hey, should I buy now? Should I wait for the dip? I'm not sure. I can't give financial advice. All I can give is some questions that I can ask you guys. And the questions I ask are, what is the time frame you plan on holding the stock for? 1 year, 3, 5, 7, 10 years, whatever that time frame is. Then ask yourself, what is your price target for that time frame? So let's say you're looking out, and I was speaking with one of you and you said, hey, in 7 years, the price target I have is $5,000. Awesome. So based on the price we are looking at today, do you think you would be getting a worthwhile return on your investment if you purchased at the prices now? And are you emotionally okay if that stock price potentially falls down to that 250 or 245 level? Ask yourself those few questions, and if you're okay with all of that and you like that return on your investment, go ahead and buy. So again, not financial advice, you're just answering your own questions, but that's just the things that I like to ask and give you guys, some questions to ask yourself so you can go out and do your own research, do your own due diligence, come up with whatever price targets you can think of. This is how I got to where I am now, and my conviction in the company and the stock is just doing my own research and due diligence, following many people that are out there, following Sawyer Merritt, Rob Maurer, Dave Lee, Stephen Mark Ryan, a lot of these guys giving a lot of good information and education on the company and where the company is headed so that I can make my decisions as to what I want to see for the future. And then I made up my own valuation model, created that and said, all right, well, if the company is going to do all of these numbers, I have now created my own price target. And by doing all of that, I now have a much stronger conviction for the future, which is why my portfolio is just under 67% Tesla and growing. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. How long do you think it's going to take the energy side of the business to really start popping for Tesla? Do you think it's going to be 2024, 2025, or do you think it's going to be earlier than that? Maybe it's going to take a little bit longer. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Also, we do have memberships that are now officially up and running on the channel here. Again, not required, but if you guys want to support the channel any bit there are some perks that go along with it. I will be able to focus more of my attention for the comments on you guys as members as the channel grows, and I do find myself struggling to be able to get to all of your comments. So I can at least prioritize that way. Again, not required, and I do still plan on trying to get to all of your comments, regardless of whether you are a member or not, because you are all extremely valuable to me, to this channel, and to this community. So thank you all so much. Thank you all so much for watching. I appreciate all of your support and feedback. If you have not subscribed, please do so down below. Sign yourself up for notifications. I am over on Twitter at OracleTim1. I share all of the latest Tesla news, pertinent stock market information, and all of my daily trades. We do have a Discord chat. That link is down in the description. And if you'd like to support the channel any further, we do have a Patreon. That link is also in the description. Thank you so much. Have a great one.